Marcus Chen's alarm didn't sound. He'd disabled it the night before, preferring to wake naturally to the pale morning light filtering through the single window of his studio apartment. The walls were bare except for a single photograph, his grandfather in front of the original Chen family restaurant, decades before the empire. Marcus lay still for a moment, listening to Riley's breathing beside him, feeling the weight of her arm across his chest. Outside, the hum of the city's neural network traffic system created a white noise backdrop, punctuated by the occasional whir of delivery drones passing 20 stories below. He extracted himself carefully, not wanting to wake her. The apartment was small enough that he could see every corner from the bed, kitchenette with its outdated protein synthesizer. The desk where his 3 monitors sat dark and dormant, the single chair that doubled as both dining furniture and clothes hanger. The building management AI had pinged him twice this week about upgrading to a premium unit with smart glass walls and integrated home systems, but Marcus had dismissed the notifications without reading them. Riley stirred as he started the coffee maker, one of the few appliances he'd kept from the analog era. She rolled onto her side, blonde hair catching the morning light, and watched him through half-open eyes. "You're thinking too loud. It's just coffee. It's Vivian's party." Riley sat up, the sheet falling away. She wore one of his old university shirts. The Berkeley engineering logo faded almost to nothing. "Your brain's been spinning since midnight." Marcus brought her a mug, real ceramic, not the disposable smart cups that tracked your caffeine intake and reported to your health insurance AI. "I'm fine, you're Marcus Chen, which means you're already cataloging every possible conversation and planning your exits." She took the coffee and patted the space beside her. "Come here," he sat. Riley shifted closer, her bare leg brushing against his. "Listen to me. Your sister is 28 years old and getting engaged to an influencer whose entire personality is his augmented reality following. Your parents are going to fawn over her like she's solved cold fusion. You are going to smile, eat expensive food that tastes like cardboard, and come home to me. Understand, you make it sound simple, it is simple. They don't define you." She kissed him, tasting like coffee and something uniquely Riley. "I define you. Your work defines you. The fact that you still use a coffee maker from 2031 defines you. Not them." Marcus's phone buzzed, his actual phone, not the neural implant most people used for communication. The screen showed a message from his mother: "Don't forget to dress appropriately. Vivian's friends are all connected. First impressions matter." Riley read it over his shoulder and snorted. "First impressions. You've known these people your whole life." She means don't embarrass them, then she should have said that. Riley stood, stretching. The shirt rode up, exposing the small tattoo on her hip, a book, old-fashioned and analog, like everything else about her. "I need to get to school. Some of us have jobs that require physical presence." Marcus drove a 2034 Honda Civic, back when cars still had steering wheels and didn't require subscription services to unlock basic features. The neural traffic grid guided autonomous vehicles around him with passive-aggressive efficiency, and more than once he caught the judging flicker of pedestrians' retinal displays as they scanned his vehicle's age and value. Riley didn't seem to notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. Lincoln Elementary School looked like an artifact from another century, which it was. No holographic displays, no AI teaching assistants, no smart desks that adjusted to each student's neural patterns. Just brick, concrete, and the kind of analog learning that had fallen out of fashion 20 years ago. Riley taught here by choice, though Marcus knew she could have worked anywhere. The pay was terrible, the technology was non-existent, and the students came from families who couldn't afford the neural-enhanced private schools that dominated modern education. He watched her through the classroom window as she crouched beside a small boy, guiding his hand across actual paper with an actual pencil. The kid's face lit up when he finally formed the letter correctly, and Riley's smile was pure and unfiltered in a way that made Marcus's chest tight. No augmented reality filters, no beauty enhancement algorithms, no social media performance. Just Riley, being exactly who she was. She caught him watching and waved, then made an exaggerated shooing motion. Marcus left, but not before she blew him a kiss that no one else would see, a moment that existed only for them in a world that recorded everything. The Willowbrook Country Club existed in that strange space where old money and new technology collided. The building itself was classical, marble columns, vaulted ceilings, the kind of architectural grandeur that screamed permanence. But overlaid on top of it was the modern infrastructure, holographic greeters, retinal scanners that assessed your net worth before you crossed the threshold, ambient AI that adjusted the music and lighting based on the collective mood of the guests. The valet who took Marcus's keys did so with the kind of professional courtesy that couldn't quite mask his disdain, his retinal display probably already cataloging the vehicle's value and cross-referencing it with Marcus's profile. Riley emerged from the passenger side in a simple dress that she'd probably bought off-grid, away from the algorithmic shopping assistants that tracked purchase history and social media presence. She looked beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with the beauty enhancement filters most women wore like second skins. Marcus offered his arm, and she took it, squeezing once as they approached the entrance. "Chin up, Mr. Chen," she murmured, her breath warm against his ear. "You're the best man here, and I plan to prove it later tonight." Marcus felt heat rise in his face, and Riley's smile turned knowing. She enjoyed making him blush, had perfected the art of it over 3 years. He was still formulating a response when the doors opened and they stepped into chaos. The engagement party was everything Marcus had expected and worse. Vivian had spared no expense, which meant their parents had spared no expense, which meant that every surface gleamed with either real crystal or its holographic equivalent. Ice sculptures melted slowly in the corner, their forms programmed to shift and reform every 15 minutes. A string quartet played in one corner, their instruments enhanced with acoustic AI that adjusted the sound based on the room's conversations and ambient noise. Everywhere Marcus looked, people wore the telltale shimmer of AR overlays, enhanced clothing, beauty filters, status displays visible only to those with the right retinal implants. Vivian held court in the center of the room, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Marcus's annual property taxes. Her engagement ring caught the light with mathematical precision, 3 carats of lab-grown diamond that her retinal implant probably broadcast to every device in range. Beside her stood Trent Ashford, whose face Marcus recognized from the holographic billboards that dominated the city's commercial district. Trent was an influencer in the truest sense, 200,000 followers across multiple platforms, brand deals with companies Marcus had never heard of, and a personality that seemed to exist entirely within the digital space. Marcus's parents occupied the space near Vivian like satellites orbiting a star. Linda Chen wore jewelry that Marcus suspected was worth more than his entire building, each piece probably broadcasting its provenance and value to anyone with an active AR display. David Chen worked the room with the ease of someone who'd spent decades in social combat. His retinal implant no doubt feeding him real-time information about every guest he encountered, net worth, social connections, business opportunities. Linda spotted Marcus and Riley first. Her smile was automatic, practiced, and didn't quite reach her eyes. She crossed the room with her arms extended, air-kissing Marcus on both cheeks in the European style she'd adopted after a vacation to Paris 5 years ago. "Marcus, darling, you came." She glanced at Riley, and Marcus watched the micro-expression that crossed her face, the brief moment where her retinal implant failed to recognize Riley, then the flash of acknowledgement, then the return to social performance. "And you brought Rachel, Riley." Riley's smile was pleasant, professional, and absolutely lethal. We've been together 3 years, Mrs. Chen, of course. I'm terrible with names. Linda's eyes did that thing where she was clearly reading something on her AR display, probably pulling up Riley's profile right now. You look lovely. Is that dress vintage? The question was innocent on its surface, deadly underneath. Vintage meant old, meant unable to afford current fashion, meant operating outside the constant cycle of consumption and display that defined their social circle. It's new, Riley said evenly. I bought it last week. Teacher's salary has its perks. Linda's smile flickered, just for a moment. Then David was there, clapping Marcus on the shoulder with enough force to make him stumble. Son. Still working at that computer job, software engineering, Dad. Same company for 7 years. Right. Steady work, that's good. David leaned in, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was a conspiratorial whisper but carried clearly in the acoustically enhanced space. Between you and me, when are you going to make a real move? You're 32 now. Time to think about building something, not just maintaining someone else's code. Marcus felt Riley's fingers dig into his arm, a warning pressure. He managed a neutral smile. I'm happy where I am, happy. David repeated the word like it was foreign. Well, happiness is important too, I suppose. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur like your sister. He drifted away before Marcus could respond, pulled into orbit by a country club board member whose retinal display David had probably been monitoring for the last 5 minutes. Marcus exhaled slowly, counting to 10 in his head the way his therapist had taught him years ago. Breathe, Riley murmured. It's just words, it's always just words. They drifted to the periphery of the party, loading plates with appetizers that had been arranged more for aesthetic appeal than sustenance. Marcus recognized the food: protein synthesized to taste like beef, genetically modified vegetables engineered for maximum visual impact, desserts that probably cost $50 per bite and contained enough smart ingredients to report back to the catering company's algorithms about guest preferences. Riley took a bite of something that claimed to be salmon and made a face. This tastes like what fish would taste like if fish had never existed and someone programmed a computer to guess based on old recipes. Marcus almost laughed, caught himself, felt the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. This was why he loved her. She saw through everything, cut past the performance to the reality underneath. She bumped him with her hip, a casual gesture that somehow felt intimate in the crowd. Hey. Look at me, he did. Riley's eyes were brown and real and unenhanced by any beauty algorithm. She didn't wear retinal implants, didn't participate in the constant social media performance that defined most people's existence. She was exactly herself, always, without filters or augmentation or digital intermediation. You are brilliant, she said quietly, each word deliberate. You are kind. You are the best man I've ever known. And in about 2 hours, I'm going to take you home and show you exactly what I think of you. Understand? Heat rose in Marcus's face again. Riley's smile turned wicked, and she kissed him, slow, deliberate, public enough that several of Vivian's friends glanced over with raised eyebrows. Let them look. Let them judge. Let their retinal implants record and catalog and broadcast. Marcus didn't care, except he did care, and Riley knew it, and that was fine too. Dinner was announced by a holographic herald that materialized in the center of the room, its voice perfectly modulated to cut through conversation without seeming loud. The guests found their assigned seats through AR waypoints that only they could see, a coordinated dance of technology and social hierarchy. Marcus and Riley discovered they'd been seated at what could only be called the children's table, far from the head where Vivian, Trent, and the parents sat, surrounded instead by Vivian's younger friends and their partners. The conversation swirled around them like water around stones. Brands Marcus didn't recognize, vacation destinations that existed primarily in augmented reality, influencer drama that seemed to consume more attention than actual world events. Riley made polite contributions, asking questions that seemed genuine but that Marcus recognized as gentle mockery. The others didn't notice, too absorbed in their own performances. The food was elaborate and tasteless, each course announced by floating holographic displays that provided nutritional information, ingredient sourcing, and social media integration options. Marcus picked at his filet mignon, real beef, prohibitively expensive, and somehow managing to taste like nothing at all. Riley ate with apparent enjoyment, though Marcus caught her slipping most of her portions into her napkin when no one was looking. Then came the toasts. Vivian's maid of honor went first, a woman whose face Marcus vaguely recognized from social media. She spoke about Vivian's business acumen, her social grace, her ability to build an empire from nothing, conveniently ignoring that the empire had been funded by their parents and consisted primarily of social media consulting for companies that didn't seem to actually exist. The room applauded on cue, their retinal implants probably recording every moment for later replay and analysis. Trent's best man followed, making jokes about finally locking down the most beautiful woman in the room, about the power couple they would become, about the influence they would wield together. More applause, more recording, more performance. Then David stood, tears actually visible in his eyes. "My daughter," he said, voice thick with emotion that seemed at least partially genuine, "has always been extraordinary. From the moment she was born, Linda and I knew she was destined for greatness. Vivian is our greatest achievement, our proudest moment, our—" Marcus stopped listening. He'd heard variations of this speech his entire life, had learned long ago that his role in the family narrative was to be the control group, the baseline against which Vivian's success could be measured. Riley's hand found his under the table, squeezing once, twice, 3 times. "I love you." He squeezed back, then Trent took the microphone, and everything got worse. "I want to thank everyone for celebrating with us tonight," Trent began, his voice carrying that practiced quality of someone who spent their life performing for cameras. "Vivian and I, we're builders. We're not afraid to dream big, to take risks, to create empires from nothing but vision and determination." He paused, and Marcus felt the shift in the room's attention. Trent's eyes swept across the crowd, his retinal implant probably feeding him real-time data about every person present, calculating the optimal moment for maximum impact. "We surround ourselves with people who elevate us," Trent continued. "People who understand that life is about more than just showing up, collecting a paycheck, maintaining the status quo." His gaze landed on Marcus, held there for a beat too long. "Because life's too short to settle for mediocrity. To the people who see possibility, cheers." The room erupted in applause. Crystal clinked against crystal. Somewhere, a holographic display showed highlights from Trent's influencer feed, his greatest moments curated and edited for maximum emotional impact. Marcus stared at his plate, willing himself to feel nothing, failing. Linda materialized beside him, her hand patting his shoulder with that particular kind of pity reserved for disappointing children. She leaned close, her voice pitched for his ears only. "Sweetheart, don't take it personally. Trent just means, well, not everyone is cut out for the spotlight, you know? You've always been more background. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. The world needs worker bees too." She squeezed his shoulder once more and glided away. Marcus felt Riley's entire body go rigid beside him. "Breathe," he whispered, "I'm breathing. I'm breathing and calculating exactly how hard I need to punch her before the security AI intervenes." "Riley, kidding. Mostly." Riley grabbed her wine glass, took a sip, then made a show of adjusting her grip. The glass slipped, or appeared to slip, sending red wine cascading across the white tablecloth in a spreading stain that immediately triggered alerts in the room's environmental monitoring system. "Oh my God." Riley's voice carried across the suddenly quiet room. "I'm so clumsy." People rushed over with napkins, their movements coordinated by the venue's AI system. Marcus tried to help, but Riley waved him off, her voice projecting with perfect clarity across the space. "I'm such a disaster." "Good thing your financial advisor said we can replace this dress and still hit our investment goals this quarter, right, honey?" The room went silent. Not the polite silence of people pretending not to listen, but the absolute silence of everyone listening with complete attention. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "Riley, financial advisor?" David's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. He was suddenly at their table, Linda right behind him, both their faces showing the kind of focused interest they usually reserved for profitable business opportunities. "Marcus, you have a financial advisor." "Dad, it's not. Why would you need a financial advisor?" Vivian had materialized at her father's shoulder, champagne glass forgotten, her retinal display probably already pulling up Marcus's financial data from whatever databases her implant had access to. "You work IT support, software engineering." "Oh, did Marcus not mention?" Riley's voice was innocent, her eyes anything but. "His portfolio's gotten pretty complex lately. Between the rental properties and the stock options and the—" "Riley, please." Marcus's voice came out strangled, but Linda had already latched onto Riley's arm, her fingers digging in with enough pressure to leave marks. "Rental properties? Marcus, you own property?" "Multiple properties." The entire party had reorganized itself around their table. Conversations died mid-sentence. Trent lowered his phone, his influencer instincts probably screaming that he was missing the real story. Even the string quartet had stopped playing, their acoustic AI sensing the shift in room dynamics and adjusting accordingly. Riley looked at Marcus, and in her eyes he saw apology and determination and 3 years of watching his family treat him like he was nothing. "The building we live in, actually. Marcus bought it 4 years ago. He lives in the smallest unit and rents out the other 5. Something about, what was it, babe? Cash flow and equity appreciation." Marcus's face burned. His heart hammered against his ribs. Every eye in the room was on him, every retinal display probably recording this moment, cataloging it, preparing to broadcast it across whatever social networks these people inhabited. He could lie. He could deflect. He could minimize and escape and maintain the careful fiction he'd built. Riley's hand found his under the table. 3 squeezes. "I love you." Marcus took a breath and looked up at his father's face, at the confusion there, the dawning realization, the recalculation of a lifetime of assumptions. "Yes," he said quietly. "I own the building." "It's not a big deal, not a big deal?" Linda's voice was shrill now, her social performance cracking at the edges. "Marcus, you've been living like a pauper and you own an entire building? Why didn't you tell us?" The question hung in the air. In the silence that followed, Marcus could hear the ambient hum of the room's technology, the software of environmental controls, the distant sound of the city's traffic grid beyond the walls. He looked at his mother, really looked at her, and saw the expression on her face, not pride, not happiness, but something closer to betrayal, because, Marcus said slowly, each word deliberate, "You never asked." David Chin materialized at Marcus's elbow before the words had fully settled, his hand clamping down on Marcus's shoulder with enough force to make him flinch. The ambient lighting in the country club shifted subtly, the AI systems detecting the spike in tension and adjusting to create more intimate zones of illumination. Around them, the other guests had formed a loose circle, their retinal displays probably lighting up with real-time updates as the room's gossip algorithms processed and distributed this unexpected development. The bar, David said, not quite a request. Now, Marcus allowed himself to be steered away from the table, from Riley's protective presence, from the spreading stain of wine on white linen that had started everything. The bar occupied one corner of the ballroom, all dark wood and crystal that probably predated the smart glass revolution. David ordered 2 whiskeys without consulting Marcus, his hands moving with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd spent decades in social combat. The bartender, human, not holographic, which said something about the club's commitment to traditional luxury, poured with mechanical precision. Explain, David said, sliding one glass across the polished surface. And I mean everything, Marcus. You own a building, 6 units. Marcus wrapped his hands around the glass but didn't drink. The whiskey was probably older than he was, distilled before the flavor synthesis technology had made aged spirits obsolete for everyone except the very wealthy. Small building. Nothing impressive, nothing impressive. David's laugh was sharp, humorless. Son, do you understand how long it took your mother and me to buy our first property? 15 years. 15 years of saving and planning and sacrificing. You were what, 28, 27? Marcus took a small sip. The whiskey burned, real and unenhanced by any molecular manipulation. I got lucky with the timing. The neighborhood was depressed, the seller was motivated, and I had enough for a down payment. From what? David leaned closer, his voice dropping to that particular register he used when discussing money. You were making $60,000 a year. Maybe 70 with your bonuses. Where did you get down payment money for a 6-unit building? Marcus felt the familiar weight of his father's scrutiny, the sensation of being catalogued and assessed and found wanting that had defined most of his childhood. Except now the assessment was shifting, recalibrating, and somehow that felt worse than the dismissal. I saved 90% of everything I made for 3 years. Lived on rice and beans. Roommates. No car. I bought the Honda after I closed on the building, 90%. David said it like Marcus had claimed to have discovered cold fusion in his bathroom. That's not possible. It's possible if you don't spend money on things that don't matter. Linda appeared at David's shoulder, her jewelry catching the light with calculated precision. She'd reapplied her makeup, Marcus noticed, or more likely her beauty enhancement filter had adjusted to compensate for stress. Her eyes were too bright, her smile too fixed. Marcus, sweetheart, I need to understand something. You own a building, a whole building, and you never thought to mention this? To your family? You never asked how I was doing. Marcus set the whiskey down, the glass making a soft sound against the bar. You asked if I was still at the same job. If I was still driving the same car. If Riley and I were getting serious. But you never asked how I was actually doing. We thought you were struggling. Linda's voice rose slightly, her filter slipping. Several guests turned to look, their attention pulled by whatever social monitoring algorithms they were running. You dress like you shop at vintage stores, you drive a car from the 30s, you live in that tiny apartment. I live in that apartment because I own the building it's in. Marcus heard his own voice, flat and factual. And barely recognized it. And I live in the smallest unit because the larger units generate more rental income. It's basic economics. Vivian materialized on his other side, champagne sloshing slightly in her glass. Her engagement ring threw light across the bar's surface in patterns that were probably designed to maximize its visibility to any nearby recording devices. Things that don't matter, she said, and Marcus could hear the champagne in her voice, the way it loosened her usual careful control. Is that what you think, Marcus? That clothes and cars and showing people you're successful, those things don't matter. Riley was suddenly there, her presence like a shield between Marcus and his sister. Her eyes were dangerous, her posture deceptively relaxed. Careful, Vivian, careful about what? Vivian took another sip of champagne, her movements exaggerated. I'm just trying to understand my brother's philosophy. If he's been secretly rich this whole time, maybe he could have helped mom and dad instead of making them worry. Maybe he could have contributed to the family instead of just judging us from his modest little apartment. The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Marcus felt something shift inside him, some final restraint breaking. I've been paying their mortgage for 2 years. The bar area went silent. Even the ambient music seemed to pause, the room's acoustic AI sensing the moment's importance and adjusting accordingly. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. David's face went carefully blank, the expression he used when processing information that contradicted his worldview. What? Linda's voice was barely audible. Marcus looked at his father, meeting his eyes directly for maybe the first time in years. Dad's surgery wiped out your savings. The medical bills, the recovery costs, the months he couldn't work. I set up an automatic payment from an account I opened in your name, Dad. It drafts from my personal account and pays your mortgage every month. You never noticed because I made sure the amount exactly matched what you were already paying. David's hand found the bar's edge, gripping it hard enough that his knuckles went white. Marcus, you didn't know because you never looked. You just assumed I couldn't help. Marcus picked up his whiskey, drained it in one swallow. The burn was cleansing, clarifying. You assumed I was barely making rent, that I was struggling, that I needed your pity and your advice about getting a real career. And I let you assume it because it was easier than explaining. Trent had drifted over, his phone held at an angle that suggested he was either recording or streaming or both. His influencer instincts were good, Marcus had to give him that. He'd identified the real story within seconds of it breaking. Marcus, man, Trent said, his voice pitched for maximum audibility. I gotta say, real estate is smart. Super smart. I've been thinking about getting into investment properties myself. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime? Talk strategy? I feel like we got off on the wrong foot. Riley moved before Marcus could respond, her body sliding between Trent and Marcus with the kind of possessive grace that made something warm bloom in Marcus's chest despite everything. Oh, Trent, she said, her voice sweet as poisoned honey, Marcus doesn't do networking at family events. He's off the clock. But if you're interested in real estate, I can recommend some excellent books. Do you read? Trent's smile flickered. His phone dipped slightly, his performance momentarily disrupted. I prefer experiential learning. You know, talking to people who've actually done it. Getting real-world insights, how entrepreneurial. Riley's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Marcus prefers learning by doing. That's why he owns property and you, what do you do again? Film yourself opening packages from sponsors. Trent has 200,000 followers. Vivian's defense was automatic, rehearsed, probably identical to arguments she'd made to her parents over the past year. That's a real business. That's actual influence. That's. How many rental properties does he have? Riley asked, her voice cutting through Vivian's protest with surgical precision. Silence. Marcus watched the calculation happen on Vivian's face, the moment where she realized the trap Riley had laid. Around them, the other guests were no longer pretending to have their own conversations. Phones were out, some obvious, some discreet. Whatever happened next would be recorded, processed, and distributed across multiple social networks before the night ended. Linda's hand found Marcus's arm, her fingers digging in with desperate pressure. Let's sit down, she said, her social performance reassembling itself with visible effort. Let's all sit down like civilized people and discuss this properly. Marcus, you need to explain. You need to help us understand. They returned to the table where the wine stain had spread into an abstract pattern across the white cloth. Someone had brought additional chairs, rearranged the seating to accommodate the family drama that had become the evening's main entertainment. Marcus sat because standing felt too much like making a statement, and Riley sat beside him close enough that their thighs touched under the table. "Explain the Honda," Linda said, her voice steadier now that she'd had a moment to process. "If you can afford better, why drive that ancient thing?" Marcus glanced at Riley, who nodded slightly. "Permission. Support. I paid off the Honda in 18 months. He said, his voice flat, factual. "I've been maxing out my 401k contributions since I was 25. That's $23,000 a year, adjusted for inflation. The Honda runs fine. It gets me where I need to go. Cars are depreciating assets. I'd rather put money into things that grow." "The apartment," David said, and Marcus could see him doing the math, his mind working through numbers and possibilities. "You said 6 units. What's the property worth now?" "I bought it for $450,000. Put down $90,000. Current market value is probably $630,000, give or take. The neighborhood's gentrifying. Tech workers moving in, coffee shops replacing bodegas. The usual pattern, rental income?" David was fully engaged now, his earlier shock transmuting into professional interest. This was a conversation he understood: assets and cash flow and return on investment. $8,400 a month, total. Mortgage payment is $3,200. After property tax, insurance, and maintenance reserve, I net about $5,000 monthly. On top of my salary." Marcus watched his father process this, watched the numbers click into place. $5,000 a month was $60,000 a year. Passive income, the kind that accumulated while you slept. The kind that built wealth silently, inevitably, compound interest working its mathematical magic. "Your salary," Linda said, and something in her voice had shifted from shock to something that might have been respect or might have been fear. "Marcus, what exactly do you do at that computer company, Helix Technologies?" "I'm a senior software engineer. I build the back-end infrastructure for their predictive analytics platform." Marcus could feel Riley's hand on his thigh under the table, warm and steady. "I've been there 7 years. Started when they were 20 people working out of a converted warehouse. Now they're preparing for an IPO." Vivian made a sound like she'd been struck. "An IPO. You have stock options." "I have stock options," Marcus confirmed. "They vest over 5 years. I'm 3 years in. How much?" David's voice was quiet now, dangerous in its intensity. "How much are the options worth?" Marcus took a breath. This was the line, he realized. Once he said the number, once it was out in the world, there would be no taking it back. His family would know. The guests would know. Within hours, anyone with access to social media databases would know. Conservative estimate? $4.2 million. If the IPO goes well and the market doesn't crash and 1,000 other variables align correctly, $4 million. David said it like a prayer or a curse. "Marcus, you're a millionaire, on paper. Maybe. It's not liquid. It's not guaranteed. The options are worth exactly zero until they vest and the company goes public and I can actually sell them. I didn't want to count my chickens before they hatched, this whole time." Vivian's voice shook, her champagne forgotten on the table. "This whole time you've been secretly rich and you never said anything. You let us think you were struggling. You let Mom and Dad worry about you. You let me. I gave you $15,000, Marcus said quietly. 2 years ago. You said your consulting business needed capital for expansion. You said you'd pay me back when your first big client came through. Vivian's face went pale under her makeup. That was a loan? I thought that was a gift. I thought you were being a good brother. I was being a good brother. I gave you money when you needed it. But yes, Vivian, it was a loan. We had that conversation. You signed paperwork. I don't remember paperwork, because you didn't read it. Marcus's voice was still quiet, still factual, but something had changed in the air between them. You just needed me to transfer the money immediately so you could buy your website package and your branded merchandise and whatever else you spent it on. You said business required investment. That you'd pay me back within 6 months. Vivian was crying now, her careful makeup smearing in a way that her beauty filter couldn't quite hide. My business is successful. I have clients. I have projects. I'm building something. Riley leaned forward. Her voice gentle but implacable. Vivian, honey. We follow your Instagram. We know what your consulting business looks like. It's aesthetic photos and motivational quotes and the occasional post about brand strategy. It's not a real business. It's a performance. You don't know anything about my business. Vivian's voice rose, drawing more attention, more recording devices turning their direction. You're a teacher. You make $40,000 a year. You have no idea what real entrepreneurship looks like. I make $42,000, Riley corrected pleasantly. And you're right, I'm just a teacher. I work at an underfunded public school teaching 8-year-olds how to read actual books instead of just processing text through their neural implants. I do that because I love it and because I can afford to. Vivian's laugh was brittle. You live off Marcus. Everyone knows that. Marcus felt Riley's posture change, felt the moment she decided to stop playing defense. Want to know why I can afford to? Riley asked, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet table. Want to know why I drive Marcus's Honda and shop at Target and live in a tiny apartment teaching kids for teacher wages? Because Marcus pays for everything, Vivian said, but there was uncertainty creeping into her voice now. Because my grandparents left me a $3 million trust fund when I was 21. Riley's voice was calm, almost conversational. Because my family owns Hartwell's Grocery. 6 states. 340 stores. Annual revenue around $2 billion. Because I grew up with money and chose to do something that matters instead of something that pays. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus stared at Riley, his mind struggling to process what she'd just said. Trust fund. $3 million. Hartwell's Grocery, he'd shopped there hundreds of times, never connecting the name to the woman beside him. You. Marcus's voice came out strangled. You have a trust fund? Riley turned to him, her expression softening. I was going to tell you. I wanted to tell you so many times. But Marcus, you loved me when you thought I was broke. You insisted on splitting every bill even when I tried to pay. You never once asked about my family's money or my background or what I could do for you. You just loved me. She touched his face, her fingers gentle against his cheek. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? That's the sexiest thing about you, you genuinely don't care about money. You've been pretending to be poor, Marcus said, still trying to catch up with this revelation. I've been being myself. The money's just there. Like yours. It doesn't define me. Riley's smile was small, private, meant only for him. I teach because I want to. I live simply because I prefer it. I'm with you because you're brilliant and kind and you see the world clearly. That's real. Everything else is just numbers and accounts. Marcus felt laughter building in his chest, sudden and unexpected. The absurdity of it, both of them hiding wealth, both of them pretending to struggle, both of them choosing authenticity over performance while his family performed themselves into debt. Riley started laughing too, and then they were both laughing while everyone watched, confused and uncomfortable. I don't understand. Linda's voice cut through their laughter. You're both rich? Both of you have been pretending to be poor, comfortable, Riley corrected, wiping her eyes. Not rich. And we weren't pretending. We were just living, without showing off. Marcus added. Without performing for social media. Without needing validation from people who measure worth in designer labels and follower counts. Linda's face did something complicated. Marcus, sweetheart, this is wonderful news. We're so proud of you. We always knew you were brilliant, we always knew you'd be successful, did you? Marcus asked, and his laughter died. Did you really, Mom? Because an hour ago you were patting my hand and telling me it was okay that I wasn't cut out for the spotlight. You were calling me background. A worker bee. So tell me, are you proud of me now because of who I am, or because of what you just learned I have? Linda's carefully constructed expression crumpled. David looked like someone had hit him with a hammer. Around them, the guests watched with the kind of fascination usually reserved for particularly dramatic entertainment programming. Marcus could feel their retinal displays recording, their social monitoring algorithms processing, their networks lighting up with updates and commentary. I'm the same person I was an hour ago, Marcus continued, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Same job. Same car. Same girlfriend. Same apartment. The only thing that changed is what you know about me. So which Marcus were you proud of? The one you thought was struggling? Or the one who turns out to have money? That's not fair, Linda whispered, isn't it? Marcus stood, Riley rising beside him. You've spent my entire life comparing me to Vivian. Measuring me against her Instagram presence, her designer clothes, her influencer fiancé. You forgot my birthday last year because Vivian had a business launch that was really just brunch with her friends. You skipped my promotion celebration because Vivian needed help setting up her home office. You introduced me as your other child at family reunions. So forgive me, Mom, if I question whether your pride is real or just a recalculation based on new data. Vivian was sobbing openly now, mascara tracking down her cheeks in dark rivers that her beauty filter couldn't compensate for. This is my engagement party, she said, her voice breaking. My night. My moment. And you're making it about you. Like you always do. Like you always have. Name one family event that was about me, Marcus said, and there was no anger in his voice now, just exhaustion. 1. Vivian. One time when Mom and Dad celebrated something I did instead of something you performed. Vivian opened her mouth, closed it. Opened it again. No words came. I thought so. Marcus took Riley's hand. We're leaving, wait. Linda reached for him, her fingers closing on empty air. Marcus, please. We need to talk about this. As a family. We can work this out. Riley's voice was cold enough to freeze nitrogen. You had 3 years to talk to him as family, Mrs. Chen. You spent that time making him feel invisible while you built shrines to your daughter's Instagram feed. You're not entitled to his time or his money or his forgiveness just because you finally noticed he exists. They turned toward the exit. Marcus could feel every eye in the room tracking their movement, could imagine the social media posts already being composed, the gossip algorithms churning through this unexpected development. Behind them, he heard Trent's voice, Hey man, seriously, if you ever want to discuss investment opportunities. Marcus didn't turn around. Riley raised her free hand, middle finger extended in a gesture older than any technology in the room. And they walked out into the night air that smelled like rain and freedom and the future opening up before them like a door they'd been waiting years to walk through. Marcus Chin stood in the chroman glass atrium of the Stellar Tower, watching holographic projections of his sister's face rotate above the entrance. Each projection showed Vivian at a different milestone, graduating from Stanford with her neural engineering degree, accepting the Rising Innovator Award, cutting the ribbon at her first biotech startup. The images flickered and reformed in an endless loop, each one accompanied by her verified social credit score, a pristine 987 out of 1,000, displayed in glowing numbers that pulsed like a heartbeat. His own score sat at 743. Respectable for most people. Invisible in his family, Riley squeezed his hand, her palm warm against his. She wore a dress that looked simple until the light hit it, revealing microscopic LEDs that traced patterns along the fabric like constellations. Her score, 822, hovered discreetly above her left wrist, projected by the dermal implant everyone got at 18. She'd disabled the public broadcast function years ago, one of the things he loved about her. "Your jaw's doing that thing again," she murmured. "The clenching thing." "I'm not clenching, you're absolutely clenching." She ran her thumb across his knuckles. "We can leave. Right now." "Fake a neural sync malfunction." "I'll start twitching, you'd do that, I'd do a full seizure if it got us out of here." She smiled, but her eyes tracked the crowd with the assessment of someone who'd spent years navigating rooms full of people who measured worth in algorithms and assets. "Though for the record, your sister's projection is giving me uncanny valley vibes." Did she get more facial work done? Probably. Her last stream mentioned something about micro-adjustment treatments for optimal camera angles. Gross. The main doors dilated open, actual dilating doors, because his parents had insisted on the most cutting-edge venue for Vivian's engagement party. Marcus felt the familiar weight settle in his chest as Linda and David Chin materialized in the entrance, their scores blazing above them like crowns. His mother had broken 900 last year. His father sat at 923. Linda spotted them and her smile went sharp at the edges. She wore a gown that shifted colors as she moved, fabric embedded with reactive nanites programmed to complement her surroundings. David's suit displayed subtle stock tickers along the seams, a flex that announced his day trading success even at his daughter's party. Marcus. Linda air-kissed near his cheek, close enough to trigger his proximity sensors but not close enough for actual contact. "You came, wouldn't miss it," and Riley. His mother's eyes flicked to Riley's wrist, checking the score even though Riley had it muted. "How lovely. Is that dress vintage?" Riley's smile didn't waver. "It's this season's Nakamura collection. Pre-release. How resourceful of you to acquire that." Linda's tone made resourceful sound like shoplifted. "David, doesn't Marcus look well? Though perhaps a bit thin. Are you eating enough protein paste? I can send you my nutritionist's contact. She does wonders with budget optimization." "I'm fine, Mom." "You're not fine, you're almost translucent." Linda patted his cheek with one perfectly manicured hand, her nail polish programmed to match her dress. "We worry about you in that little apartment." "What neighborhood is it again?" "The developing district, Midtown." "Oh yes. Midtown." She said it like he'd announced he lived in a waste reclamation facility. "Well, you're young. You have time to improve your circumstances." David clapped Marcus on the shoulder, his score pulsing brighter as if to emphasize the gesture. "Son. Good to see you. How's the work situation?" "Good. Still at Cipher Systems." "Cipher Systems." David nodded slowly, accessing his neural link. Marcus could see his eyes glaze slightly as he pulled up information. "That's a data firm, blockchain architecture and cryptocurrency infrastructure." right. The crypto thing. David's attention was already drifting. Vivian was just telling us about her new funding round. 20 million in venture capital. Can you imagine? 20 million. And she's only 28, I'm 30, Marcus said. Are you? God, where does the time go? Linda was scanning the room, her retinal implants highlighting important guests. Oh, there's Senator Wu. David, we need to say hello. Marcus, Riley, the gift table is by the west wall. I'm sure whatever you brought will be appreciated. They swept away in a cloud of smart fabric and self-importance, leaving Marcus standing in the middle of the atrium like a boulder in a stream while the crowd flowed around him. Riley let out a slow breath. I'm going to need so much therapy after tonight. Add it to my tab. Your mother just called your apartment little. To your face, she calls it developing. That's worse. Is it objectively little? Marcus thought about the two-bedroom unit in the building he'd purchased 18 months ago. 15 units total, all renovated, all occupied by young professionals who paid rent on time and didn't realize their landlord was the quiet guy in 2B who fixed the security panel when it glitched. It's cozy. Cozy is code for tiny. You fit fine. I'm 5'4". I fit in overhead compartments. But she was smiling now, her earlier tension easing. Come on. Let's get this over with. What's your strategy? Silent suffering or passive-aggressive small talk? I was planning on silent suffering. Boring. Let's go with chaos. She tugged him toward the main reception area where Vivian held court surrounded by guests, her score glowing like a halo above her professionally highlighted hair. Her fiancé Trent stood beside her, his own score an impressive 891, his expression carefully calibrated to convey success without arrogance, the look of someone who'd practiced in front of smart mirrors programmed to optimize facial presentation. The room itself was designed to impress. Holographic art installations rotated through the space, each piece tagged with the artist's name and current market value. The catering drones moved with liquid grace, offering molecular gastronomy on edible plates that dissolved on the tongue. Everything in the room cost more than Marcus made in a month, and the room knew it. Sensors embedded in the walls tracked guest scores and adjusted the ambience accordingly, warmer lighting and more attentive service for higher numbers, cooler tones, and slower drone response for everyone else. Marcus watched a catering drone bypass him entirely to offer champagne to a woman whose score blazed at 956. Did that drone just snub you? Riley whispered, programmed class system, that's dystopian as hell. That's efficiency. But he grabbed 2 glasses from a passing tray, the drone's reluctance evident in its sluggish approach. The champagne was probably synthetic, actual grapes were luxury items now. But it tasted expensive, which was the point. Vivian spotted them and her face cycled through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, calculation, performative delight. She broke away from her admirers and glided over, her dress leaving a trail of glowing particles that faded after 5 seconds. Someone had programmed her outfit for maximum impression. Marcus. She hugged him, and he caught the faint scent of designer pheromones, molecularly engineered to create positive associations in nearby neural receptors. You made it. And Riley. You both look nice. The word hung there like a participation trophy. Congratulations, Marcus said. The party's incredible. Trent planned most of it. He has such vision. Vivian gestured to her fiancé, who was showing a group of guests something on his wrist display, probably his investment portfolio or social media metrics. 20 million views on our engagement announcement. Can you believe it? We crashed 3 streaming platforms. That's something. Trent says we could monetize the wedding. Live stream rights, sponsorship deals, the works. We're in talks with Stellar Broadcasting. She said it casually, but her eyes tracked Marcus's reaction. What about you? Are you still doing, what was it again, blockchain architecture, right? The computer thing. She touched his arm, her nails programmed to pulse gently, a soothing gesture that registered as synthetic on his neural implant. That's so important. We need people who understand technology. The backbone of society, really. Riley made a sound that might have been a cough or a laugh. Vivian's attention snapped to her. Riley. How's teaching? Still at that charter school, Lincoln Elementary. And yes, that's so admirable. Working with underprivileged children. I keep meaning to do more charity work, but my schedule is insane. Vivian checked her wrist display, where notifications scrolled past in a constant stream. Trent and I are thinking about starting a foundation once we're married. Tax benefits and social credit boosts. It's a smart financial move. You could just help people because they need help, Riley said. Oh, totally. That too. Vivian was already scanning the room, her attention fragmenting. I should circulate. But we need to catch up properly. Maybe coffee next month? I'll have my assistant sync with your calendars. She floated away, leaving the scent of designer pheromones and the faint hum of her score's projection in the air. Your sister, Riley said carefully, is a lot. She's always been a lot. That was worse than usual. Did she actually forget what you do for work? Marcus sipped his champagne. The bubbles were too perfect, too uniform. Definitely synthetic. She never knew what I did for work. None of them do, Marcus. Riley turned to face him fully, her hand on his chest. He could feel the warmth of her palm through his shirt, the gentle pressure of her fingers. Why do you come to these things? She's my sister. She treats you like a plus one at your own family events. It's complicated. It's not complicated. It's sad. But she said it gently, without judgment, and that somehow made it worse. Do they know you own a building? That you've been consulting for 3 Fortune 500 companies under an LLC? That you have actual money? I have money on paper. It's different. It's literally the same thing. It's not the same. Marcus took another drink, watching Trent demonstrate something on his display to a rapt audience. Their money comes with scores and social proof and public validation. Mine comes from smart investments and staying under the radar. In their world, if you can't broadcast it, it doesn't count. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's reality. A drone approached with appetizers, tiny sculptures of compressed protein and edible flowers. Riley took one, examined it, and popped it in her mouth. Tastes like money and poor life choices. That's a $17 flower. I've made a huge mistake. But she was grinning now, and Marcus felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. Riley had this effect on him, the ability to make everything slightly less awful just by being there. He'd met her 3 years ago when she volunteered at a coding workshop his company sponsored. She'd walked in wearing a shirt that said syntax error, coffee not found, and stolen his attention completely. That she came from money, real money, grocery empire money, and chose to teach elementary school in a developing district had only made him love her more. Linda's voice cut through the ambient music and conversation. Everyone. If I could have your attention, the room's smart systems responded to her tone, dimming other sounds and amplifying her voice through hidden speakers. Guests turned, their scores glowing in the semi-darkness like fireflies. Linda stood on a raised platform that had risen from the floor, David beside her. Behind them, a holographic display began cycling through images of Vivian and Trent, their first meeting, their first vacation, their engagement on a beach in New Maldives where the water was still blue if you paid enough for the filtration system. We're so thrilled to have you all here tonight, Linda began, her voice rich with emotion that might have been real or might have been enhanced by the room's audio optimization. To celebrate our daughter Vivian and her fiancé Trent as they embark on this incredible journey together. Applause rippled through the crowd. Someone's neural implant triggered a confetti projection that rained digital flowers over the happy couple. Vivian has always been exceptional, Linda continued. From the moment she was born, we knew she was destined for greatness. And she's exceeded every expectation. Neural engineering degree from Stanford. 2 successful startups. A social credit score that puts her in the top percentile. And now, marriage to a wonderful man who shares her drive, her vision, her commitment to excellence. More applause. Vivian beamed, her score pulsing brighter as the room's sensors registered increased attention and positive sentiment. As parents, we couldn't be prouder. Linda's voice caught, perfectly calibrated emotion. We've always taught our children that success isn't given, it's earned. And Vivian has earned every achievement, every accolade, every moment of recognition. She's an inspiration to her entire family. Riley's hand found Marcus's and squeezed hard. David took over, his voice carrying the weight of financial authority. Trent, we're honored to welcome you into the Chin family. You and Vivian are building something remarkable together. An empire, really. And we want to support that empire. He smiled, and the holographic display behind him shifted to show a single image, a house. Not just any house, a mansion in the Hills District. Where actual trees grew and the air quality stayed green on the monitors. Which is why we're giving you this as an engagement present. Fully paid. Consider it our investment in your future. The room erupted in gasps and applause. Vivian actually screamed, her hands over her mouth in shock that looked rehearsed but probably wasn't. Trent's score jumped 3 points in real time as the room's systems registered his increased social value. Marcus felt Riley's nails dig into his palm. Linda beamed at the crowd. We believe in investing in success. In rewarding excellence. In showing our children what's possible when they dream big and work hard. Vivian embodies everything we've tried to teach her. And this is just a small token of our pride. More applause. Someone started a chant of Vivian's name. The drones released actual confetti, the expensive kind that biodegrade after an hour, and champagne flowed from fountains that rose from hidden floor panels. Through it all, Marcus stood frozen, his champagne glass empty, Riley's hand the only thing keeping him tethered to the floor. Breathe, Riley whispered. You're forgetting to breathe. He managed to pull air into his lungs. The room felt too bright, too loud, too much. Around him, guests congratulated his parents on their generosity, praised Vivian's accomplishments, toasted Trent's bright future. No one looked at Marcus. No one asked about his work or his life or whether he might want a house too. He was the other child. The one Linda sometimes forgot to mention when listing her children's achievements. The invisible son with the developing district apartment and the respectable but not impressive score. I need air, he managed. Riley didn't argue. She steered him through the crowd toward the balcony, navigating around clusters of guests who didn't notice them leave. The night air hit his face like a splash of cold water, the city spreading below them in layers of light and shadow. Up here, in the tower's upper levels, the air quality was actually decent. Down in Midtown, where Marcus lived, breathing without a filter left a metallic taste in your mouth. Your parents, Riley said slowly, each word measured, are spectacular assholes. They're proud of Vivian, they're showing off. There's a difference. She leaned against the railing, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. A house, Marcus. They bought her a house. When's the last time they helped you with rent? I don't need help with rent, that's not the point and you know it. She turned to face him, her expression fierce. They treat you like you're failing. Like you're some disappointment they have to gently tolerate while they celebrate your perfect sister. And you just stand there and take it. What else am I supposed to do? Fight back. Tell them the truth. Stop letting them think you're struggling when you're not. Riley, you own a building, Marcus. An entire building. You have investments in 6 different companies. Your portfolio is worth more than most people make in a lifetime. And you let your mother call your apartment little. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Why? He looked out at the city, at the dividing lines between districts marked by light quality and air purity. Down in Midtown, his building sat on a corner lot, its security panel glitching because he hadn't gotten around to fixing it yet. 15 tenants who thought he was just the guy who handled maintenance. A boring life that didn't translate to social credit or public validation, because it doesn't matter. He said finally. The money, the building, the investments, none of it matters if I can't point to it on a score display. In their world, I'm still failing. The numbers say so. Fuck the numbers are everything, to them. Not to you. Riley moved closer, her hand on his jaw, turning his face toward hers. Marcus Chen, you are the kindest, smartest, most genuine person I know. You fix your tenants' security panels at 2 in the morning. You taught free coding classes to kids in my school. You live quietly and help people and don't need validation from algorithms and strangers. That's worth more than any score. Try explaining that to my parents, maybe I will. Something in her voice made him look at her, really look at her. She had that expression, the one she got right before she did something impulsive and probably inadvisable. The same expression she'd had when she'd kissed him for the first time in his apartment after their 5th date, interrupting his careful speech about taking things slow. Riley. What are you planning? Nothing. You're planning something. I'm planning nothing. But she smiled, sharp and dangerous. Come on. Let's go back inside. I want to congratulate your sister properly. The next hour passed in a blur of small talk and careful avoidance. Marcus fielded questions about his work from distant relatives who didn't really care about the answers. He watched Vivian and Trent pose for photos that would be on every social platform by morning, their scores climbing in real time as likes and shares accumulated. He endured his uncle's advice about improving his credit score through targeted social media engagement and his aunt's concern about whether he was eating enough vegetables. Riley stayed close, her hand on his back or arm or shoulder, a constant warm presence that kept him grounded. She made small talk with his cousins, laughed at his grandfather's jokes, and deflected his mother's pointed comments about career trajectories with the skill of someone who'd been navigating social warfare her entire life, but he could feel her tension building. See it in the set of her shoulders and the way her smile got tighter as the night wore on. The explosion came during dinner. They were seated at the family table, Marcus, Riley, Vivian, Trent, Linda, David, and several key relatives who qualified as important enough for intimate proximity to the guests of honor. The table was actual wood, a flex that probably cost more than Marcus's car. Holographic displays floated above each place setting, showing personalized menus and score updates. Marcus's cousin Jennifer was talking about her promotion at some biotech firm. Vivian was describing the house's smart features, AI climate control, holographic windows, a kitchen that planned meals based on your current health metrics. Trent kept checking his wrist display, probably monitoring their engagement announcement's viral spread. Linda reached over and patted Vivian's hand. We're just so proud of everything you've accomplished, sweetheart. Both of you. Building an empire together. Well, we try to focus on meaningful success, Trent said, his tone carefully humble. Not just making money, but making an impact. Leaving a legacy, that's so important, David agreed. I was just telling Marcus the other day that it's not about the money, it's about what you do with it. The influence you build. The way you shape society. Marcus felt Riley's leg press against his under the table. Speaking of Marcus, Linda said, turning to him with the bright, sharp attention of someone about to deliver a compliment that was really a criticism. How is work going? Still at that tech company, Cipher Systems. And yes, such important work. Linda smiled. Vivian was explaining cryptocurrency to me the other day. It's fascinating how some people are really finding success in that space. Perhaps you could give Marcus some pointers, darling? Help him network a bit more effectively? Vivian nodded enthusiastically. Oh my God, yes. I know some people in crypto. Let me connect you, Marcus. Networking is everything in tech. I appreciate that, but I'm doing fine. Are you though? His Aunt Margaret leaned forward. Her score a respectable 834 glowing above her wrist. It's just, and forgive me for being blunt, dear, but you're 30 years old. At your age, your sister had already sold her first startup. Everyone's journey is different, Riley said pleasantly. Of course, of course. Margaret waved her hand, her smart jewelry glinting. But in this economy, you have to be strategic. Visible. I worry Marcus is being too modest. Too invisible. Invisibility isn't always bad, Marcus said. It is if you want to succeed. David spoke with the certainty of someone whose score had bought him the right to advise. You need to put yourself out there, son. Build your brand. I could introduce you to some people. Help you develop a 5-year plan. I have a plan, do you? Because from the outside, it looks like you're treading water. Linda's voice carried real concern, which somehow made it worse. We're not criticizing, Marcus. We love you. We want you to thrive. But you have to want it too. You have to be willing to do the work. Riley's fork clinked against her plate with enough force to draw attention. The table went quiet. I'm sorry, she said, her smile bright and terrible. I just need to clarify something. When you say Marcus needs to do the work, what exactly do you mean? Linda blinked. Well, career development. Networking. Building his profile. The usual things successful people do. Right. The usual things. Riley took a sip of her wine, real wine, probably, given the price point of this venue. Just to make sure I understand, you think Marcus isn't successful? We didn't say that, you said he's treading water. That he's too invisible. That he needs help developing a plan. Riley's voice stayed perfectly pleasant, but something in it made Marcus's stomach drop. I'm just trying to understand if you actually know what your son does for a living. The table went very still. Marcus saw his father's expression shift, saw Vivian's eyes widen slightly. Trent looked confused, his hand hovering over his wrist display like he might need to look something up. Riley, Marcus said quietly. She ignored him. Does anyone at this table know what blockchain architecture involves? What kind of clients pay for that expertise? What it's worth in the current market? It's technical work, David said carefully. Good work. Important work. But it doesn't come with a startup story or a TED Talk or 20 million views. Riley set down her wine glass with deliberate precision. Got it. Just wanted to make sure we were all clear on what counts as success in this family. Riley, we're not trying to diminish Marcus's work, Linda began. Yes, you are. You've been diminishing it all night. All year. All 3 years I've known him. Riley's voice never rose. But something in it cut through the ambient noise of the restaurant. Other tables were starting to notice. You know what's actually impressive? Living quietly. Helping people without broadcasting it. Building something real instead of something performative. But I guess that doesn't boost your social credit score, so it doesn't count. That's not fair, Vivian said, her voice small, isn't it? Riley turned to her. Quick question, when's Marcus's birthday? Vivian opened her mouth. Closed it. Glanced at Linda. It's March 14th, Riley supplied. He'll be 31. You all forgot his 30th birthday last year because Vivian had a launch party. Do you remember that? Vivian? Your product launch that ended up being a photo shoot with some influencers? Vivian's face flushed. That's not. What company does Marcus work for? Cipher Systems, Marcus said flatly. And what does Cipher Systems do? Silence. They build security infrastructure for cryptocurrency exchanges, Riley said. Marcus specifically designed the architecture for 3 of the top 10 exchanges in the world. His work protects billions, with AB, in digital assets. But sure, let's focus on how he needs to network better. David's score had dimmed slightly, a physical manifestation of discomfort. Riley, we appreciate Marcus's work. We just want him to what? Have a score that makes you look good? To get you social credit by proxy? Riley stood, her chair scraping against the floor. Here's something actually worth knowing. I have a trust fund. Have. Whatever. It's worth approximately $3 million. My grandfather founded Hartwell's Grocery. You probably shop there. So my score? The 822 that's been hovering above my wrist all night? That's with me actively hiding most of my wealth and working a job that pays $40,000 a year because I like teaching and I don't need the money and I don't care about the validation. The table stared at her. Around them, Marcus could hear other conversations dying, attention shifting their direction. And you know what? Riley continued. Marcus never cared about the money. Never asked about it. Never changed how he treated me when he found out. Because that's the kind of person he is, the kind who values people for who they are, not what they're worth. Maybe you could try that sometime. She grabbed her purse and looked at Marcus. I'm going to the bathroom to scream for a while. When I come back, we're leaving. Unless you want to stay? It's your family. She walked away, her dress leaving those fading trails of light behind her. The silence at the table stretched like rubber about to snap. Linda recovered first. Well, that was passionate, that was honest, Marcus said. Marcus, we didn't mean, yes, you did. He stood, his legs steady even though his hands weren't. Riley's right. About all of it. You don't know what I do for work. You forgot my birthday. You introduced me as your other child at the family reunion last year. And you're buying Vivian a house without even asking if maybe I could use some help too. You never said you needed help, David protested. I shouldn't have to ask, Marcus. Vivian reached for his hand across the table. We didn't realize, that's the problem, Viv. You never realize. None of you do. He pulled away gently. I'm happy for you. Really. You and Trent are building something, and you deserve to be celebrated. But I deserve to exist as more than your unsuccessful little brother. I'm tired of being invisible in my own family. He walked away before anyone could respond, following Riley's path through the restaurant. He found her in the corridor outside the bathrooms, leaning against a wall, her face in her hands. Hey, he said softly. She looked up, mascara smudged, eyes fierce. I'm not sorry, I know, they were being horrible. All of them. Just sitting there acting like you're some charity case when you're. She stopped, breathing hard. You're incredible, Marcus. You're successful and kind and you own a building for fuck's sake. And they don't even see it, I know, so why do you let them treat you like that? He thought about it, really thought about it. About the years of being second, of watching Vivian shine while he worked in shadows. About choosing substance over style and quiet success over public validation. About building a life that mattered to him even if it didn't matter to anyone else, because I didn't think I had a choice, he said finally. Their version of success was the only version that counted. But watching you defend me just now, hearing you list my actual accomplishments out loud, it made me realize how fucked up it is that I've been hiding. Not for myself. For them. To make them comfortable with my version of success, Riley wiped her eyes, leaving a black smudge on her hand. You own a building, I own a building, you protect billions in assets, billions with AB, and you still fix your tenants' security panels at 2 in the morning. Someone has to, she laughed, raw and real. God, I love you. Even when you're infuriating, the feeling is mutual. They stood there in the corridor, the party continuing beyond the doors, the world moving on without them. Marcus could feel his phone buzzing in his pocket, messages from his family, probably. Apologies or justifications or demands that he come back and smooth things over. He ignored them. What now? Riley asked. Now we leave. Get tacos from that place in Midtown with the questionable health rating. The one where the score checker broke 2 years ago? That's the one. Best tacos in the city, damn right. He held out his hand. Come on, Riley Hartwell. Let's go home. She took his hand, her fingers lacing through his. For the record? That thing I said about the trust fund? Your parents are going to lose their minds. Good, they're going to want to celebrate us now. Suddenly we'll be the successful couple, also good. Let them try. They walked out through the service entrance, bypassing the main atrium with its holographic projections and score displays. Outside, the night air tasted like freedom and poor life choices. Marcus's car, a 10-year-old Honda that he'd paid cash for, sat in the lot beside hovering luxury vehicles worth more than his building. He'd never loved that car more than he did right now.